Hello and welcome to the homework video for 6th grade for Tuesday, April the 28th. This is going to cover the homework from our lesson working with statistical questions. In the previous video, which was the lesson, I was working to make sure that you guys understand the difference between a question that we might ask that could have more than one possible answer and a question that could have more than one answer but uses more than one piece of information to get the answer to the question. So the second example where we're using multiple sources of information or multiple statistics, that would be our statistical question as opposed to just a general question. So number two, I mentioned if you watch the lesson that there are 30 possible numbers. Well, I guess 31 if you count zero. As the possible score for the first frame, but we're only asking about one frame. So question B is going to ask for 10 different pieces of information potentially for one person's game. So, and then if we were comparing those, then there are different questions that we could ask. So question B is going to be the one that will work for that. And the reason why is there's more information that we would be using to answer that question. So number four, a teacher recorded the test scores of all her students. Write a statistical question that you could ask in this situation. So one of those questions would be, how many of those students scored above a certain grade? And then we have to use all of the test scores to determine the answer to that. If I just wanted to know what was the score that this particular student got, then that's only asking for one piece of information, and that would not be a statistical question for the purposes of what we're working on in this lesson. Number six, the city tracked the amount of waste that was recycled from 2000 to 2007. Write a statistical question about the situation. What type of recycled material was collected the most each year? Would be a question. And that could have 7 different answers, or sorry, 8 different answers. If we like 2000 its own year. So from 2000 to 2001, what was the most frequently collected type of recyclable material? And so that could be different for each year. And then we could even combine all of the years to figure out which one was collected the most. So there are lots of different things that you could do with that. So number 8, write one statistical question that you could use to gather data about your family. Explain why the questions are statistical. So how many, for instance, I have a rather large family. I have 2 younger sisters who are married and both have children. And so just the immediate family, we have a rather large number, to the point that we have been meeting via Zoom calls instead of trying to meet in person, just so that we can keep up with each other because of the dangers of possibly spreading COVID-19 through our family if we were to try to gather together before it's really safe to do so. So a question that I could use, because I would have a large number of people together, would be, how many of the people in my family have blonde hair? So for those of you that know, I technically have blonde hair, but it's turned dark over the years, and it's turning back more blonde because I have gray coming in or whatever else, if it's even possible to tell with the lighting and everything. But that could be a statistical question because it's going to ask about every single person. So it's either going to be a yes or no for each person, and then the number of people that could be involved with that would be different from, say, the family of the person that's watching this. So I'm not asking about just one specific thing. So that could be a potential thing that you could do for that. So number 1 on the back, Elise says the question, do you have any siblings, is a statistical question. Mark says that how many siblings do you have is a statistical question. So a sibling question like the first one is a yes or no. So there's only 2 possibilities. The other one, if you have people that have siblings, there's more opportunities for variation. And so I would argue that the one that Mark has is probably better um, for the purposes of what we're working with. If you are asking multiple people, if I ask everybody in the school if they have siblings, then yes, this could also work for that. If we're only asking one person, then this is not going to probably work as well as this one. So if you have a question about that, please feel free to ask. Again, this is just kind of my interpretation based on what I'm trying to relate to you as far as what we would consider a statistical question or not. The higher amount of variation with this one would lend it better than the first one. So number two, what was the lowest amount of precipitation in 1 month last year is a statistical question. So there are 12 different points of data that we could use for that. Mike says, what is the speed limit? Well, here's the thing. There are a lot of places, and a lot of places have similar speed limits. So if you are in a residential area, typically it's 25 or 30 or 35, sometimes maybe even 20, depending on where you're at. For instance, I spend a lot of time traveling for my job with the Army Reserves. And so if I'm on an installation, a residential area might actually be 15, 20, or 25. But that one location that we're asking about is always going to have the same speed limit, unless something weird is going on and we're doing construction. So our first one, because we are asking about 12 pieces of information, would be the correct answer. This one, depending on how many places we're asking about, could potentially be, but it sounds like we're only asking about one the way this question is being asked. So hope that makes sense for you. If you have any questions, I think the main idea of this is easy to understand, but maybe once we get into the weeds and start getting really particular about specific questions and why they may or may not work, that may be where questions will come up. So I'll be happy to explain those and give you any insight or any additional information to help you kind of understand what we're looking at with that. So you guys will have another lesson on Tuesday, which will be the morning that this comes out. So the homework video for this will come out at the same time as the new lesson. So you guys, I will see you in the next video, which will be our next lesson. So I'll talk to you then.